For our last exercise in the mortgage exercises spreadsheet, we're going to do the same exercise as previously in exercise 4, but with a different monthly rate. And the reason is it's not always clear whether you should use the annual rate 4.3% as an APR or as an EAR or effective annual rate. And those two are going to be different based on how we treat compounding. So real quick, I want to actually go back to exercise 4 and calculate the effective annual rate in this case. And again, the effective annual rate comes from compounding. So if we calculate 1 plus our monthly rate, and we compound that over 12 months, and subtract 1 to get back to a percentage, what we see is that we get a 4.386% effective annual rate, which is greater than our discount rate or our annual rate of 4.3%. All right, so by dividing by 12, we're actually effectively paying a higher rate than maybe we're intended to pay. It all depends on how the lender is stating that rate. Normally in the US, interest rates are stated as APRs, so you can divide by 12 to get your monthly rate. But it's important to know that you're effectively paying a higher rate of interest. So what if we want to make the adjustment and instead assume that the 4.3% is an effective annual rate rather than an annual percentage rate? So that's what we're going to do in exercise 5. So to calculate our effective annual rate, we're going to have to use a little math. And one thing we know is that we want to have 1 plus our annual rate must give the same rate as 1 plus our EAR compounded for 12 months. So we know that those two things must be equal. So to then back out our effective annual rate on a monthly basis, we can raise both sides to the 1/12. So we can say 1 plus our annual to the 1/12 is equal to 1 plus our EAR. Once we do that calculation, we can kind of rearrange this and say that our EAR is equal to 1 plus our annual rate to the 1/12 minus 1. So now let's go ahead and calculate that in Excel. If we come over to our spreadsheet again, we can type in 1 plus our rate raised to the 1 divided by 12 minus 1. And we get an interest rate of 0.3515%, which should be less than that effective annual rate, which was just taking our annual rate dividing by 12. And if we flip back to exercise 4, we see that that's the case. We had 0.3583 before. We now have 0.3515. So we have a little bit lower effective annual rate that when it compounds up, compounds to 4.3%. Let's just look at that real quick. 1 plus that rate raised to the 12th is equal to exactly, let's actually subtract our 1, make it a percentage, is equal to exactly our 4.3% that we were targeting. So we know that that works okay. Now we can recalculate our payment, use that monthly rate, make sure we adjust our years to months, and put a negative in front of our initial balance. And now we see our payment is actually a little bit lower in this scenario. If we flip back, here we're paying $750, before we were paying $754. So about a $4 or $5 difference on how we're compounding the interest rate. Now I wanted to come over here to actually copy my model over as well. Because once you've built a model, you might as well reuse it. So let's come over here, paste that model in. And now I just want to make sure it's updated to reflect my new values. It reflects my new payment. It reflects my new interest rate. And so the model, and let's make sure it pays off at the end. It's about 0 at the very end. Notice here we have a slightly positive rounding error versus a slightly negative rounding error. And now we can add up our total interest expenses. And also we can again count our total payments. And we see that we pay in total less interest by using this lower effective annual interest rate versus that APR that didn't account for the compounding. All right, so this is the end of the mortgage exercises schedule spreadsheet. go ahead and practice these. Again, and the emphasis is to make sure we can build these models quickly and efficiently. You've had a couple different exercises to practice this. So we're going to start moving into new functions as we get into the next few weeks.